Welcome to the Dragonfly Rising podcast. I am your host, Dr. Tammy Dean. Thank you for joining me today as we continue to work together to make a difference. Let's explore how we can use our voice today. Welcome, everyone, to the Dragonfly Rising podcast. I am Dr. Tammy Dean, and I have Kelly joining us today from Normal, Illinois. So I'm going to let Kelly introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her and what she does and her thoughts around equity.
Hi, guys. My name is Kelly Crum. I am a guest on this podcast today. I'm really excited. So first, I guess I'll just introduce myself, give a little bit of my background, and talk about how I came to have a passion for equity, especially in the classroom. So I went to Illinois State. I started in 2013. That is where I met the lovely Dr. Tammy Dean. I graduated in 2017 and immediately got a job at Bloomington High School, which is very close to Illinois State University. It's just the town right over. Immediately after that, I started a master's degree at Illinois State in history. And that's kind of a lot of where my initial introduction to equity and these types of topics came from, on social justice, the importance of diversity, things like that. And I would really say that a lot of that sparked for me in my job at Bloomington High School. I'm from Vernon Hills, which is about an hour north of Chicago. It is a very not diverse place. So it was quite a wake-up call when I started teaching in Illinois' fourth most diverse district is our statistic in District 87 in Bloomington. It was quite a wake-up call all of a sudden being with students of every possible background, every possible religion. I had students coming in from the Congo speaking French. I had just all types of students that I had never come into contact with before. So that's kind of where all of this started for me. And then a lot of my research and a lot of the things that I looked into in my master's program had a lot to do with schools and equity and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I didn't realize, Kelly, that Bloomington had that distinction of being the fourth most diverse district. I hadn't realized that. So that's super exciting. Yeah. And you all heard Kelly and I was a professor back then at Illinois State. So we've stayed in contact, which is so exciting, which is what led us here today because Kelly and I are friends on social media. And she posts some amazing things she does with her students, and they're so exciting. And one of the things that she was looking into doing that we're going to talk about today is there's this amazing graphic novel, and it is called, I'm going to show it up, it's called Wake by Rebecca Hill. And I love this because it just gets into intersectionality and of diversity, of experience, talking about women. Women are, lost oftentimes in history, even the name history, it has the word his in it, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
patriarchy is always coming for us ladies. But so this graphic novel is amazing. If you haven't taken a look, I highly suggest it. So Kelly has some amazing plans. Kelly, you want to talk a little bit about the book and kind of what drew you to it and
Absolutely. I don't remember how I found the book, to be honest. I think it went past me on social media at some point, and I was just like, oh, that looks interesting. So I just ordered a copy. And I think it was last winter break that I read it. And I ended up reading it in 3 hours because I was so enthralled once I started. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And so I plan actually to use it. I'm bringing a dual credit class to Bloomington High School this coming school year through partnership with Heartland Community College here in Normal. So that's kind of my purpose of the class I'm going to use it in. But as I started reading it, what really drew my attention to it is that Dr. Hall's point in the book is kind of twofold. So she kind of had a historical argument, and then she had more of a method type of argument. So her historical argument has to do with the idea that when we talk about slave revolt specifically, women are almost always left out of that story. It is assumed that it is men that are leading most of these slave revolts and that women are not really ever part of that story. So obviously Dr. Hall is no, that is not true. And she uses all types of primary source research to prove why that's not true. But the cool thing about the book, that's already cool, right? But
right?
the other
Yes,
cool thing about the
absolutely.
book, right, is that she flips back and forth. So, like, every other chapter is like one chapter about these women-led slave revolts that she's researched, and then the next chapter is about, like, her experience in researching it and how she's struggling as a historian, as a female historian, attempting to find documentation. Like, there's this one whole chapter where she talks about, I can't remember, it's like a bank in London where she wanted to go and get these like primary documents that she thought would
Yes.
help her write this research. And the bank is just straight up like, no, we do not give documents. We
It
are
was
not.
Lloyd's of London, right? Wasn't it? Yes, yes.
Yes, that's what it was. And they were like, nope, we're not giving you anything. Obviously, in this institution is attempting to hide their past involved with slavery. It's why they're refusing to give her these documents. But I really like it for my students, and particularly in a dual credit class, because they're not only going to see these amazing stories of women-led slave revolts, but they're also going to see the challenges that historians can face in finding these documents, which can really answer the question like, okay, why are women missing? Like, why don't we have these stories? Where are they and how can we find them? And then also just like sometimes the inability to do so, the sad truth that we have institutions that are trying to hide these stories. And I'm hoping it leads to great conversations about how do we get around that? What is it actually like to study history? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that's something that's so compelling. I know there was multiple pieces like
Mhm.
that, Lloyd's of London, like how they were basically insuring the slaves on the
Yeah.
slave ship, right? And
Yeah.
so this powerful idea, and we see this in lots of places in America and American
Mhm.
history, and especially in this climate right now, right? Where we're trying to deny the events that happened
Absolutely.
and took place, right? And so I think that's interesting, right? Because this is our, ancestral connection back to
Mhm.
England and the colonies
Mhm.
and all those things. And they're trying to hide what they were involved in. And like, let the truth be the truth. And I think that's the biggest thing when we talk about, and you can tell me what you think about this. When I think about like equity and social justice, to me, it's like,
Mhm.
let's focus on the truth. Like, it's not, we can't apply today's evaluation or expectation or social cultural norms to what happened doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like ignoring it, we're doomed to repeat our history, right? We're not going to really be able to think about the systems and structures that exist and how to make them better because if we can't go back and look at the
Right.
history, then how do we know how to make it different, right? And so I
Absolutely.
don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that? I mean, I'm curious.
I guess kind of similarly, something that has been kind of a struggle, kind of frustrating for me in our current climate, especially I'm a history teacher, so that has
Right.
been interesting over the last 2 or 3 years. Something that really frustrates me and some of these examples of like trying to hide these stories and limit what teachers can talk about in the classroom and kind of limit, specific groups of people being talked about. Something that really frustrates me is I look at my classroom and I'm like, but this story applies to maybe 75% of the students in here. So it's
Mhm.
just very frustrating when we're choosing what we can teach versus what we can't. But there's students in the classroom that like, but that is their history, but that
Right.
does apply to them. But that is what like their past is about. So why is one group of students allowed to hear a story that relates to them and another group of students isn't? I don't particularly understand. And obviously that argument is oftentimes coming from people not in a classroom. But I don't understand how we do the mental gymnastics to make that decision.
Yeah,
So, I don't
yeah.
know.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
right there with you, right?
Mhm.
Like who's I always think about this like when we think about history or books or texts or
Yeah.
any of those things,
Mhm.
right? Well, we probably talked about this way back when we were in class together, right? Like
Probably.
I'm just thinking about I was like, "Wait a second, I think we talked about this." But, like, whose voice is privileged and whose voice is
Absolutely.
heard, right? And perspective. Because, you know, you and I can experience the same thing and
Mhm.
have a different story and perspective about that same event, and both are valuable and important,
Mhm.
to the big picture. So I love that this is in this book.
I have a
So I love this about the book, right? The juxtaposition of her experience, like you were talking about as a
absolutely.
woman, as a researcher, with the history of it and the powerfulness of the imagery in the graphic novel. I know sometimes people think graphic novels are simpler texts, but I really feel like they're very complex because they also inquire a lot of inferring or looking at how the artist has also chosen
Mhm.
to represent. So you may be able to like read through the words quickly, but to really
Right.
dive in is going to take some more time. So I know have some kind of plan. You have some plans for this dual credit class. So talk to me a little bit about how you plan on using it with these students. It's very exciting.
Okay. Um, so I'm still kind of working through some of the like decisions that I need to make. I know that like I do want to sit down and like read with them. Like I want to be there with them in the text. I want to be able to like pause and talk about things. I think that that's really, really important. In terms of like what we're going to do with the text, I kind of have like two avenues that I might go down. I'm considering even giving students a choice in what they want to do. So I was thinking about actually the first idea was inspired by my student teacher this past year.
Oh, that's awesome. We love that.
So yeah. So my student teacher had found, I think she found it from someone else, maybe. She found this like virtual museum that you can
Mhm.
basically like create. So it's like a Google Slides and like there's all these little like links that take you to all the different rooms and there's different purposes. There's like you can insert like primary sources, images, things like that. So I'm considering kind of having the conversation with students like, okay, so if this is a topic that is so hidden that we're not seeing, then let's create a virtual museum for it. So I was kind of considering going that route. And then I had also gotten a really cool, I'll have to send you the website because maybe you can provide it.
Yes.
My assistant principal actually found a website that compiled all of Dr. Hall's primary source material and it has a bunch of lesson plans. Like it's a whole bunch of stuff already prepared for teaching Wake. So I could direct students there and have them like use those primary sources as resources for their little virtual museum. So that's one idea that I'm kind of toying with. The other one that I'm kind of toying with is just hearing their thoughts, like having them write some type of like reflection or maybe create like a reflection song or poem or write a paper, kind of whatever they want to do with it. But just kind of hearing out their thoughts. I'm used to teaching freshmen, but these are going to be juniors and seniors who are receiving college credit. And I kind of want to push them to like, what did you actually learn from this? Like, what are you taking away? What are you walking to the next phase of your education with this knowledge? So I don't know. I'm kind of going both ways, and I could totally change my mind and do something different because that's
Well,
usually how it works.
well, that's how it happens, right? And sometimes you start with
Exactly.
one thing and you're like, "Oh, wait, that's amazing," or "I'm gonna go this direction." But those both sound just so amazing. I'm gonna tell you the first thing I love is like just they both have choice involved, right?
Mhm.
So students, I think, provide the most enlightening information when we give them some choice around how they
Absolutely.
express their learning and understanding and connection,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's amazing. I think the virtual museum sounds amazing. I mean, I almost feel like you could combine them a little bit, right? Like
Mm.
your thoughts around they're reflecting on this. How does that connect to them and their story and who
Yeah.
they are? And then also like we want to share this out with others. It almost sounds a little PBL like, like project like here's your question and we have this text and
Project
we're
based
gonna
learning, yeah.
yeah, yeah. A little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely,
A little
definitely.
bit, a little bit. So that's so exciting. Do you know how many students you're gonna have in the fall?
So it's only a one semester class, so I'm
Okay.
gonna get to do it twice, like first semester and again
Okay.
second semester, and I have one class each semester, so that means it has to be in order for those numbers to work out and, like, the scheduling of classes, I
Right,
have to
right.
have between 20 and 30 per semester.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know yet. I should be knowing that soon, and a lot of these students this is, like, a new class I'm bringing to Bloomington High School,
Mhm.
so a lot of these students are students I've already had that are
Yes.
just like, "Let me get back in the structure class." So it'll be a cool experience because 'cause it'll be a lot of kids that I already know, but it'll kinda be like hit the ground running. They're already with me, they already get my teaching, they already are, like, ready to go. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be a good experience.
I do too. I think that also speaks to when we think about having the opportunity to have these really deep and important conversations, it comes back to relationship, right? And,
Mhm.
I've had the privilege of seeing some of that via, Instagram and those kinds of things, like how you build those relationships. And high school students are like hilarious, right? They just really are. And they mature so much from freshman to senior.
Mhm,
But like you just said, like these are students you've had before and they're wanting to come back, right?
mhm,
And have this class with you. So I think that's just a huge testimony to
mhm.
you as an educator and
Yeah,
how you value and privilege the relationship with your
mhm.
students because the relationship is the key to all the things, at least in my that's in Tammy Dean's world.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it even like the opportunity this class, let me give a little background. So,
Yeah.
the opportunity of this class in general, I feel like speaks to the equity piece.
Mhm.
We offer our AP US history, which is obviously also a great opportunity at the sophomore level. The amount of students we have though that as freshmen are not ready to, take that AP class, are a little
Mhm.
bit nervous. AP kind of comes with a stigma. I was like that in high school. I didn't take any AP classes because I was afraid of them. I thought that they were not like I thought that I wasn't good enough. Like I was not going to be able to do those classes. I was going to fail. I just talked myself into thinking that was not an option for me. So the amount of students that as freshmen are just not ready to make that decision, there's a lot of them. So we end up
Yeah.
with a very tracked system of like you take honors and then you take AP. And then everybody that didn't make that initial decision to do the honors level, they're just left out of all those opportunities. So the dual credit opportunity is really cool because now as a junior or senior, if you're starting to realize, hey, like I didn't challenge myself initially, and now I would like to challenge myself. And maybe in an environment where you already know the teacher, like the amount of students that have chosen to take this class because they said, Miss Shrams, I trust you. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for a dual credit class, but I trust you. I think that that makes a big difference in the students that we're going to see having this opportunity for this college level credit and just the opportunity to have more advanced content presented to them, like this Wake book. We're not talking about, well, not that we're not talking about, but it's not part of the curriculum in our general American history class that they take sophomore year. So now here's the opportunity once they're ready. So I definitely think that like brings in much more equity of having
Oh,
multiple opportunities for various different students. You're not ready to do AP sophomore year. That's fine. You can do this your senior year. I'm really excited about that opportunity.
yeah. Yeah, that's so powerful because,
Mhm.
historically, marginalized students, right, are told, that's not for you," right? Or they get that message or, like you said, "I'm not ready,"
Right.
or "I don't wanna take AP," right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, the thing with the AP too, right? There's a test involved. There's, like
Mhm.
there's a whole 'nother level of, I'm gonna call it gatekeeping for
Mhm.
advanced placement
Absolutely.
classes
Yeah.
that isn't quite there for dual credit, and, like, you
Mhm.
do your dual credit, you have college credit, right? Like, you've
Right.
done the work and put it in, so I
Yeah.
think that's one of the benefits of dual credit, over an AP course for
Mhm.
me. So but no, that's so exciting, right? Like, you have all these opportunities and options, and, kudos to District 87
Mhm.
for putting this on the books as an option. We love
Yeah.
that, and I think it was so exciting too. Yeah, like so I found this book because of Kelly. So she was telling you how she found it. She had posted it in her story, and I was like, "Okay, that's totally my vibe. I'm gonna buy this book." So I went out and bought it like that day. Yay, Amazon. And read it, and I just, of course, you know, I'm an avid reader, so I'm always
Mhm.
sharing all the things that I'm reading. But and then you're like, "I want to teach this class," and I was like, "Yes, teach this class." She's gonna put together a GoFundMe. She had put it together, and then it was gone. I'm like, "Hey, where'd it go?" Because I was about to share this with my people so they could buy these books. So the amazing piece to this is
Mhm.
the support you have from administration because I went and got the funds for you to have these
Yeah.
books, and that is,
Mhm.
like, what we love to see, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Administration is getting behind
Yeah. Mhm.
these opportunities for students. So, um
Definitely, yeah, it was my lead teacher. I took it to him and I'm like, I was ready to like sell the book. I was ready to like make my argument. I was like, I really like this. He's like, Kelly, stop. Like, if you think it's great, like, good, we'll do it. Like, let's go for it. And I didn't have the best luck with the GoFundMe. So my lead teacher had the amazing idea of reaching out to the organization called Not in Our Town, Not in Our
Uh-huh.
School.
Yeah.
And basically my lead teacher like presented it to them, to the Not in Our School kind of board, or I don't know how the group actually
Hmm.
functions, but he presented it to them and they were like, yes, we love this. That's great. You just need administration's approval. So then I did take the book to my assistant principal, who's also my evaluator. He was also a social studies teacher. So he obviously wanted to read it. He wanted to look into it. So then he ended up reading it. That's when he found that website with like all of the extra like lesson plans and materials. And I'll definitely get that to you.
Yes,
Um,
yes. We'll
but
share that
yeah,
out. Yes, for sure.
yeah. So everybody was kind of on board and I was really excited about it. And I think that students are going to like it too.
Oh, I think so. I think so.
Hmm.
I can't wait to hear how this goes and what you decide to do with it. Like when you nail that down. So we are y'all going to be coming back and talking to Kelly after she teaches the class, like how it went, what did she do, lessons learned. I would love to do that in between semesters. Like what do you, and then, like, what did you learn and how do you want to it up for the next semester? Because I think that's the most powerful thing too, right? Is you just got to take that next step and try it, right? Because even if it isn't perfect, when we're making decisions that are best for
Hmm.
students, that are focused on social justice and equity, like you really can't go wrong. You can just
Yeah,
learn and do better, right? I mean,
absolutely.
I've been doing this work for, gosh, 25, 25 years. And I'm always learning new things, new ways of thinking, new ways of trying things from other people. And I think that's kind of the key. Like, who do you like listen to and who do you like for you, like, in your journey, like who has been influential for you or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I would definitely say like the most influential have been like my influences within academia. So a lot of my professors taking very seriously like the research pieces and the credible sources pieces and the credible information pieces. And when you're looking for what information, like I always start with like a historian's argument. I'm lucky to have had a master's degree in history, so I have like a lot of background knowledge there, but I'm always starting with, okay, what do I know is true in the academic world? Just because with all of our current issues, our current media problems, it can be
Mhm.
really daunting to figure out like where do I even go? Where do I find information? Starting with academic sources is where you have to start. And I've found that a lot of those academic sources, all those academic sources really lead into these opportunities for equity. So yeah, I think that that's really important.
Yes, yes, for sure. I love
Yeah.
that. Like go to the
Mhm.
source, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Which is why, historians and social studies and history teachers are like primary source documents are really
Yeah.
important. Like
Absolutely.
read
Yeah.
them and pay attention, right? And
Yeah.
I think, social media is fabulous and it's connected us in ways
Mhm.
that we weren't connected before. I also think, like, how do we intellectually think about where is that information coming
Mhm.
from? And is it true and is it right? And is it just right?
I have to do that in my classroom all the time. The most common thing this past year was some mushrooms I found on TikTok last night, and I'd be like, "Oh my god!" And then we'd have to show me the TikTok. Okay, where do we actually find this? What does this actually mean? So I did that a lot this past school year.
See, I love that, right? Because we're taking something that
Mhm.
students are using on their everyday life and being like, "Okay, that's great. You saw that.
Right.
Now and we do this, right? Like you could do
Yeah.
that and this."
Yeah.
So I do think things are getting shared more. We have more voice. Like, I mean, even this
Mhm.
podcast, right? Like we have an opportunity to reach out to people that we normally wouldn't reach out. And I mean, we're not even in the same state. So like
Right.
which is amazing,
Mhm.
So I love that. I love that. So just thinking about your experience, kind of any pro tips or things you want to share with people who are maybe just getting started on
Mhm.
their journey with trying to be more socially just or address
Mhm.
equity with their students. What kinds of things would you like to share with them?
I actually kind of want to bring it back to a point that you just made with like teachers having to make decisions about curriculum and decisions of like what sources to use and making sure you're including diversity, you're taking equity into account. One of the problems that I have noticed early in my career is that there is always something extra to add. There's always writing skills you have to work on. There is always like an extra like diverse source you can bring in. There's always going to be an extra thing that administration expects you to do. There's always going to be a new state standard that you have to include. And what I have found is that you are never going to do every single thing. You are never going to bring every single thing in. So you really need to look at your student population and what is going to drive like their inquiry and their engagement. And I find 9 times out of 10 that when I make the choice of, okay, like this lesson, I'm going to make sure that I talk about women-led slave revolt. Those are always the lessons that hit it out of the park, because my students immediately attach to that and immediately want to know more. So I have never, ever, ever regretted being like, all right, I guess I'm going to put writing a paragraph on the back burner for this one day, and we're going to talk about this specific topic instead. I have never regretted that. I just think especially young teachers, like it is going to feel overwhelming and it is going to feel like you're expected to do everything. You also have some choice though. And I always think that going for the DEI approach always works. Always.
Oh, yes. Okay. We're just going to end with that because 100%, right? Never regret it. Never regret it. I co-sign that 100%. I have never regretted standing up for students, doing what's right for students, engaging with the students. I think if you keep student center, you're always right where you need to be, and seek out those people that, can be your support team and reach out to them. So awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly, for that tidbit. That was perfect. And for talking with us today. Looking forward to hearing how this goes with Wake, and we will get the link to you all for the resources and check out the book. This wraps up another episode of the Dragonfly Rising podcast with me, your host, Dr. Tammy Dean. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember that action is always greater than inaction. How will you use your voice today?